The people who brought you the Russian collusion hoax and the phony impeachment scandal have developed a contingency plan for any and every outcome of the November election. Their clear intention is to dramatically and permanently change America. Their game plan is brought to you by the nefarious and ironically named Transition Integrity Project. It sounds so nice, but it is a clear and present danger to our constitutional republic. As we will see with startling new findings, they have zero interest in transition integrity. Quite the opposite. This is wholly about seizing power. So just what is the Transition Integrity Project? Here's a description from direct excerpts from the report that they placed on the internet. They say, in June 2020, TIP organized 4 scenario exercises to identify risks to the rule of law or to the integrity of the democratic process in between Election Day and Inauguration Day. At this point, it seems possible that either candidate may achieve an electoral victory, but the goal of the scenario was to gain a better understanding of the tests of our democratic institutions. They go on and say 67 people participated as active players in one or more of the scenario exercises. While dozens more participated in the exercises as observers and offered feedback, participants included both major political parties, former high-ranking government officials, senior political campaigners, nationally prominent journalists and communication professionals, social movement leaders, experts on politics, national security, democratic reform, election law, and media. Hogwash. If you didn't know better, they make it sound like a plan to defend rather than subvert the Constitution. But if you look closely, it quickly becomes apparent that their goal is radical, anti-constitutional change, regardless of the election outcome. And don't take my word for it. Read the entire document. We will link to it in our economic battle plan, and you can download that free at economicwarroom.com. In fact, we'll give you all sorts of links so you can look and see what MSN says about it, what CNN says, what Fox says. They all acknowledge that this project is not only real, but in some cases, it's revered. This report is so unbelievable, and yet very few in America know that it exists. Even fewer understand the earth-shaking implications. This truth must get out before it's too late. Now, here are a few things to note about the report. 1, it begins with a clear anti-Trump bias. It's no way bipartisan. While blaming Trump for all sorts of things, it completely ignores the full-on, well-documented, worse-than-Watergate coup attempt that was perpetrated against him. So here's their explanation for why they did the project. The project was launched in late 2019 out of concern that the Trump administration may seek to manipulate, ignore, undermine, or disrupt the 2020 presidential election and transition process. Those assumptions are as biased as you can get. They never question Biden's motives, just always blaming Trump. They go on and say the people involved are uniformly anti-Trumpers. They didn't say this. This is what Byron York says when he says few participants, John Podesta, Donna Brazile, Jennifer Granholm, Bill Kristol, Max Boot, other anti-Trumpers. Yes, that John Podesta, the same spirit-cooking guy that was released in WikiLeaks. He plays a lead role in this. And they call it bipartisan, but the so-called Republicans are all avowed never-Trumpers, and they're Biden supporters. This is the very same tactic that they're using with the so-called bipartisan debate commission. There's not a Trump supporter among them. President Trump continues to have massive Republican support. A Gallup survey in September said 94% of Republicans approve of his job performance. So it's not like they couldn't find a pro-Trump Republican to include. They just didn't. And they list 4 scenarios. They talk about things that they can war game and walk through. And they're all a clear setup to delegitimize any Trump victory. So Appendix C shows Game 1, ambiguous result. Game 2, clear Biden victory. Game 3, clear Trump win. Game 4, narrow Biden win. In all 4 scenarios, the project lays out a path to remake America. For example, here's what they suggest should happen in the case of a clear Trump win. They say the gameplay ended in a constitutional crisis with threats of secession and the potential for either a decline into authoritarianism, which means pro-Trump, that's what they're saying, or a radically revamped set of democratic rules that ensure the popular will prevail, something they think is good, by abolishing the Electoral College, making DC and Puerto Rico states, and other changes.